independent public service journalism is what we do. This is NPR.
For NPR News on the Treasure Coast, count on 88.9 WQCS and WQCS.org.
Serving the Well, good morning. It is January 27th, nice and cool out. It's a Tuesday morning. We're ready for our St. Lucie Public Schools Board Workshop. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the Treasure Hunters Pledge? Well, Tallahassee is meeting, and because Tallahassee is meeting, Miss Hawley is representing us in Tallahassee this week, so she won't be here, but she will be, she'll be talking to the superintendent and watching this video. So I appreciate Mrs. Hawley's service. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Superintendent. Go ahead, Dr. Prince.
First of all, I want to thank the board members. We concluded our week of kindness and remembrance of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I want to thank our board members for participating in many of the events that occurred throughout the week, and also the parade as well. I wanted to recognize our winners, so to speak, with their floats. And we had first place Bayshore Elementary, second place was Dan McCarty, third place was Windmill Point, and then some certificates went out to FK Suite in Morningside. But a great event, very well attended. And also, we concluded the week last week with our HBCU HSI fair. Some of you attended that event, and it was packed with our students. And it was very exciting because we had a number of our colleges that were literally handing out scholarships on the spot to our students. They came looking good. Many of them had prepared, dressed up, had transcripts. They were ready to go, and we'll have a final number of scholarships awarded later, but I just want to thank our team with talent development, Dr. Perry, Kaylee Nemo, some of the folks that coordinate that event. There are a lot of moving parts with transportation, students, buses at the school, and also here at the district office, so I'd be remiss if I didn't thank them. So that is a very successful event that we put on, and I want to thank our universities. We had 20 of them that participated on that particular day. So today we have a few topics we're going to cover. The best chief of communications in the state of Florida. It's your time to click. Thank you. So we have our PM2 progress monitoring results are in. So Dr. Summer is going to do kind of a mid-year report on how our students did on reading and math. I want to remind our board members that reading and math are only two metrics. You know, we do have 5th and 8th grade science. We have biology, 7th grade civics, and 11th grade U.S. history. So those are not part of this presentation because we use small mini assessments for those. So the PM1 and PM2 were kind of the beginning of the year and mid-year for reading and math. So those are the data points that we're going to see. Then Dr. Wild is going to do a presentation on Schools of Hope. Some of our board members have had questions about what those are. I will say that I'll preface that to say that we have met with our local legislative delegation, and they are aware of some of the challenges that we see in that legislation. Dr. Wild is going to explain what they are and what our suggestions for some fixes for that legislation that we recommended as part of our lobbying efforts. This is kind of sitting on for years. Even when I was a deputy superintendent, this is a metric that I've tracked very closely. It's the first time we've shared it with the board, and it was actually part of my initial research into the district prior to taking this job, just to be honest, is the research that went into the district and what I looked into before I took on the deputy superintendent job here. And lastly is saving the best for last, the district budget forecast. The third calculation was released just the other day, and Dr. Wild is going to present that, the challenges that it presents, but I say that challenge is opportunity. You just have to look at it and frame it that way. So we're going to continue to focus on what is the most important thing, and that is what happens in the classroom. So at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Summer, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Dr. Prince, Chair Ingersoll, School Board. Good morning, everybody. And as Dr. Prince said, I'm going to talk about our mid-year academic updates, specifically looking at PM2, and I do share this slide about all children are capable of success. We start every presentation with our principals with this, and I'm just very proud of the work that we're doing at this midpoint. And of course, this aligns to our goal one with our superintendent goals about sustaining and accelerating improvement in all of our core areas. So today we're going to talk about PM2, or Progress Monitoring 2, specifically reading and math. And Dr. Prince mentioned it's for grades 3 through 10 in reading and grades 3 through 8 in math. It does not include algebra, geometry, science, or social studies. I did share this with the board a couple of years ago, so I'll share this as a reminder that we are still assessed on what's called the FAST. It used to be the FCAT, then it was the FSA, now it's the FAST, which is based on the best standards, the benchmarks for excellent student thinking. We love acronyms in education, don't we? And a couple years ago, I also shared with you the window and the windows for the progress monitoring assessments, and I put the box. This was the window from a couple years ago, but it's essentially the same. It's from December to January. And just point of interest is that we test early in the window, and it affects math sometimes, but we feel it's better for us. We test in December. Essentially, 90% of our assessments are completed in December. Some schools and school districts in the state test in January. And then the big one, the summative, is at the end of the year in May. And that window is about 60 days, school days away. And just as a reminder about FAST achievement levels, levels 3 through 5, as you can see on the screen, those are what we refer to as proficiency. So we kind of lump that together. Levels 1, levels 2, those are not considered proficient. So remember that when we look at these numbers. So you're familiar with this slide. I orientate you to the top left, where we have the first column of the grade levels, 3 through 10. And then the next column is last school year's PM2 proficiency. That would be the percentage of kids. For third grade last year, we were at 34% proficient. This year, we're at 36%, which represents a 2% increase. Continue across, and you see where the state of Florida ranks. And as you're looking at that first row of grade 3, you're reminded that this is a full year assessment. This is testing the full year's standards in the middle of the year. Okay? And as you continue down, you can see that in 6 of the 8 grade levels, represented by blue, our increase from this year to last exceeds that of the state of Florida, or meets that of the state of Florida, the increase. In fact, the 2 grade levels that we do not have an increase are our COVID babies, grade 6 and grade 9. However, they are also trending in the right direction compared to last year's groups. So we're very proud of seeing, as an example, 8th grade is a +8. 7th grade is over 50%, which is pretty incredible if you look at 7th grade. It's up 7% from last year, and already at the middle of the year, more than half of our 7th graders are at reading proficiency.
Dr. Summer, I'm sorry. I promised that I would try not to do this as much as I do it. But I also wanted to point out a few things that are not in this presentation. It's funny, Mr. Richardson, thank you for walking in because you were just about to get a text. I was worried because you're always on time. But what I mentioned earlier that you were not here for is this is only going to include reading and math because those were assessed through PM1 and PM2. What is not on here is 5th and 8th grade science, 7th grade civics, and 11th grade U.S. history. And one of the strongest, 5th grade, we're up by 8% in reading proficiency. We anticipate that will translate to higher 5th grade science scores. When you look at 8th grade, we're up by 8%. We expect, increased science scores from last year with that as well. And then 7th grade is our next strongest grade level, and we anticipate on the civics exam we'll have stronger civics scores than last year. So these are very, very optimistic numbers whenever we look at them, and we also look at other assessed exams in these grades. So I feel very, very good about where we're at right now. Sorry, Dr. Summer.
No, Dr. Prince, I totally agree. And actually, when you put it together, that gives us an overall 5%. So when you aggregate the grade levels 3 through 10 together, our proficiency at mid-year is 5% higher this year than it was last. And this is just simply another way to look at all the green represents that we are increasing this year compared to last in each of the grade levels. And we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of a number of our schools that have multiple grade levels that have increased by 10% or more comparing this year to last. And each of the schools on the list with the grade level is listed here, but I'll shout out Allapattah has 2 grade levels. They're both 3rd and 8th. Forest Grove has 2 grade levels, 7th and 8th grade. FK Suite, 2 grade levels, 4th and 5th. Again, that have increased by 10% or more comparing this year to last. Mosaic, crushing it. Sam Gaines, both 5th and 7th grade. Southport, 7th and 8th grade. And those are great data points for those schools to see that they are definitely moving in the right direction. And there's too many schools to list individually, but you can see them on the screen. I'll continue now to math, where we see a similar story, but math is a little more volatile. So here you see grade across the state, meaning we make big improvements throughout the year. In fact, if you look at grade level 3, we've increased 5 percentage points from last school year. Last year was 25%. This year is 30. Math moves more throughout the year. That number should be about 60 by the time the year is over. Reading doesn't move quite as much, but you see that we are essentially mirroring where the state is. 4th grade, we expected that number to be down a little bit. If you see 4th, last year was 17. This year is 12. But look down at 5th. Last year was 23. This year is 29, a +6. We expected that with our significant increase in the number of kids in AMP taking that 5th grade exam as opposed to the 4th grade exam. Again, we see our COVID babies in grade level 6. And we see nice improvements in both grade levels 7 and 8. But what you don't see here is the kids that are enrolled in algebra and geometry because they don't take the PM2, which we have a significant number more of kids taking that assessment. When you put it together, you see that we have an overall increase in proficiency in math across all of our grade levels 3 through 8, not including algebra and geometry, by 3%. We're proud of that number, although we have our eyes on 4th and 6th, which were, again, our COVID babies and impacted by AMP. We want to give a shout out to some of our schools that have increased across multiple grade levels by 10% or more. Bayshore in both 3rd and 5th have increased by more than 10%. Manatee, 3rd and 8th. Mariposa, 3rd and 5th. Mosaic, almost across the board. Sam Gaines, 3rd, 5th, and 8th. And Weatherby, 3rd and 5th grade increased math proficiency by 10% or more this year, PM2 versus last year. So we create this scorecard at the end of the year, but just as a reminder, it does not include science, social studies. We're approximately equal with where the state is in terms of our plus minus from this year to last. And this is a rough way we look at it in terms of just making an estimate. We feel really good about where we are. But I did want to show you something unique and different this year that really underneath the hood is important. And if you can see, it's the average scale score growth. Average scale score growth. And we actually look at this really closely because if you look at the graphic on the left, you see the kids take the PM in August and they grow and they improve. A scale score is kind of like a percent correct, except it's weighted and complicated. You've probably seen that presentation before. But scale score is literally what drives proficiency. If kids make scale score growth, they move from non-proficient to proficient. So it's very important to us that every student experiences scale score growth throughout the year. But the graphic I want to show you is we look at scale score growth from August to December, or better yet, you can see the graphic from PM1 to PM2. And we compare ourselves from 2024, the average scale score growth, to this year in reading. So if you can see, in 2024, our average scale score growth was 4.43. 2025, last year, was 4.35. In reading, our average scale score growth is now 4.76. Excellent number for us, which means that our kids are growing, on average, more this year than last. And what's nice about that is it includes our level 1s and 2s. not just our proficient kids. I also want to show you math, where 2 years ago we made a 9.35% improvement on average from PM1 to PM2. Last year was 8.85. This year was 8.87, which just shows that in both reading and in math, our average growth per student is higher this year than last from PM1 to PM2. Dr. Prince, looks like you want to say something.
Yes, I do, Dr. Summer. So whenever I look at this, actually the data point to me here that is probably the least relevant is 2024, because when they just started the PM assessment, a lot of school districts didn't understand and didn't emphasize that the kids needed to try on that first assessment. In fact, there were teachers across the state that were encouraging their kids to not take any effort at all. But because the test is adaptive, that can put students, if they don't try on the first assessment, it can put them at a disadvantage. So the state kind of caught up to us a little bit in the sense that in 2025, across the state, they're making sure and coaching the teachers to make sure that the students are giving every effort possible to the PM1, even though it can be frustrating because the material hasn't been taught yet. So that effort piece is really important.
And what's also so important, if you see the arrow now, is what happens in the second half of the year, which is from PM2, which was taken in December, to May. And when we look at student growth, you can see the growth numbers. And whether the scale score points mean anything to you or not, you can see that in 2024, the first part of the year, the kids made an average growth of 4.43 points. The second half was 6.09. And then if you keep going to the right, in 2025, the average growth was better in 2025 in the second half of the year than in the first half of the year at 6.24 points. And that's reading. So you can say last year we made more growth in the second part of the year in reading than the year before. And that's strategic because of what we shared with you prior with our data efficiency here in this district and how we make pivots mid-year. Credit to our principals and our teachers for doing a great job with that.
And I also wanted to add why this is a data point that we included in this for you. And I know it's a little nerdy, but if I look back, the year I really am looking back to is 2025. How do we do? Because that's the year we earned an A, okay? So the average PM1 to PM2 was 4.35 last year, but if you look at 2024, we were actually higher. And I keep going back to the effort piece that not all teachers were encouraging their students to do the very best that they could. And I think we rectified that problem in 2025. And both in reading and math, the average scale score has increased from PM1 to PM2, which bodes well for PM2 to PM3 from an analytics standpoint.
And that's reading or ELA that we were looking at. And I said math was more volatile, meaning if you see the arrow now under math, you just see the movement in math, especially in the second half of the year, is more. So 2 years ago, the kids moved more than double of reading. We were 4.43 in reading. 2 years ago, 2024 in math, we were 9.35 points between August and December from PM1 to PM2. And then in 2025, we're 8.85. But if you look down to the next column, the second half of the year, you look at the first column, 2024, we made an 11.73 point gain 2 years ago. Last year was a 13.87 in the second half of the year. So we really crushed it in math the second half of the year, and that's what we look to do this year. So that second part of the year for us is extremely important, that we use data, we reflect, and then we make shifts throughout the year. So like Doc said, a little nerdy here, but we wanted, as we are familiar with this process, we just want to continue to share with you what's underneath the hood of moving kids to proficiency, and it's all for us about every single student getting to proficiency or beyond and making scale score point growth. And we track that by student and by teacher, by school, by grade level, every which way you can look at it to make the best decisions for kids. And of course, to provide support. We can't get the +5 and the +3 this year, knowing we were in an A school district last year, and we're now increasing by 5% in reading and 3% in math without being strategic. And this kind of gives us the visual, comparing this year to last, in both reading and math, as measured by our PM2, okay? So I'll shift just to some quick attendance updates. I only have 2 slides, one for this year, one for last, and just showing that we were really proud of the improvements that we made, and we're holding steady this year. Our elementary is actually up a point. So we're very proud to say that our elementary school attendance is sitting at 94% across the board on average. Very proud of that. K-8's maintaining at 94%. Middle's maintaining at 92. High school's at 90. That's quite an accomplishment. Our alternatives are maintaining strong, as well as overall, we're sitting at about 92%, which is very similar to last year with our increases at Dan McCarty and both Parkway, up almost 2 points. When you look at that over a 2-year period from 23-24 to this school year, that gives us, again, an additional 424 students per day. 1% is 400 kids. That's almost an entire school of additional students attending every single day. Quantify that in instructional hours, multiply it by about 6, you got about 2,500 additional hours per day. And we're very proud of the schools on the right that over the last 2 years have made notable increases. Dan McCarty's up 4% over the last couple of years. Performance-based, Parkway. Westwood's up 2.4%. Weatherby's up 2%, and so is White City. So kudos to the schools for attendance. And that allows me to go to the point where I get to say, are there any questions?
Chair. I do. Yeah.
Chairman Ingersoll, any questions, sir?
Yeah, thanks for calling me out there. Go ahead, Ms. Arrington.
You're welcome. All right, I have a few questions. First of all, last year when we saw the PM3 at the end of the
Yeah.
year, it seemed we exceeded the state
Yeah.
in most categories. This year, we are far beyond the state's, behind on the state's averages. Can you tell me, and correct me if I'm wrong, can you explain the funding attached to these series of tests?
So define what you mean by funding attached to the tests.
So, so the state uses this test information. What do they use it for?
Well, a number of things. I mean, it drives, number one, grade 3 is super important, right? So grade 3 proficiency will determine if kids are not, can't get an adequate score, they can get retained. So that's a big one. If schools don't improve a letter grade or maintain an A, they don't get school recognition funds, which is where teachers get to determine how that's distributed. And that's done by each individual school site. The amount changes each year. Those are a couple of quick ways.
School recognition funds, are they tied to improvement or overall scores?
So that would be based on your school grade, essentially, which could include either maintaining an A or moving a school from a C to a B, as an example. There also is different areas of funding if you're under a category of renewal, where if you're a school that's going to, essentially earn a D or an F, could increase the type of funding that you receive, or if certain subgroups, we call them ESSA subgroups, or different areas of students don't make progress, you're under what's called a watch, which could essentially lead to additional funding to earn your way out of that. Those are essentially the ways. So it's really third grade, school recognition, then certain subgroups and/or grade levels that are not considered adequate based on whatever the legislation may be that year, which tends to change. Hope that answers your
It does,
question.
actually. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Mills? Dr. Mills, if you don't mind turning your microphone on.
I have more like a comment here. As I look at all the data, and you mentioned about, it may be a little, what did you call the words?
Math being volatile.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you. I don't
No,
know.
TV land can't hear you.
Oh,
Oh, it's
There you go.
on. Testing.
Yeah, there you
go. All right, put it all the way up to the mouth. Looking at the data, and these graduation rates that we're getting, and our children are doing so well, what are we doing differently? And I would like for you to expound just a little bit more. What are we doing differently? Why are we doing such a fantastic job now in comparison to 7, 8 years ago or more? But the comment I wanted to make was, I see it on a day-to-day basis, the improvement dealing with children after school and dealing with the children that attend our child care center. most of them
Uh-huh.
are now AB students, most of them. And those that were doing really bad are really doing very well and improving. I know it has to do with a lot of hard work, the principals, the schools, the district, and of course, the educators and the teachers. So I see it on a day-to-day basis, and if it's a child that I feel is not getting the attention they need, I will call that school and ask that principal to get involved in that child's life. So kudos to the after-school programs as well. But I know that we're doing a lot to make a difference. Can you just take a little moment to really say, what are we doing differently that the children are excelling so well at this point in time?
Sure. And Doc, if you want, I'll grab that one, because I think it's the first slide that I showed, which is, our Treasure Hunters Pledge. And that's our culture. That, that is, to me, number one. And just making sure that that exists in every building and in every classroom, because if you don't have a strong culture, you really don't have much. And then systems, our systems, I think, are second to none. We presented on Power BI, which is our data tracking system. So when you believe in kids with efficacy and use data to really ensure what your priorities are, where your strengths and opportunities lie, you become unbeatable, because we can do a couple things. Number one, we can collaborate. And every Monday, our principals are on a professional development, which is really all about them collaborating with best practices, of course, using data. So when we see a success, and you see those schools like a Sam Gaines or a Weatherby making multiple grade levels increase by 10%, we've created a culture, not just that kids can learn, but I can learn from you, as you being the other principal, and I'm going to adopt the strategies that you're using that are successful and definitely moving kids. So that collaboration is critical. And then on top of that, as a district, our supports, beyond just getting principals to collaborate, but our monthly trainings, our OTL team members literally going out to sites to push in and support coaches, to coach the teachers, to maybe even provide direct support to teachers, administrators, and deans, is essentially second to none. And then our process, we want to create a sense also with our culture of accountability, accountability and support, or pressure and support, to where we are doing multiple visits per school per year to make sure that their initiatives are hitting the classrooms. So we give the support, but we also make sure that, we hold them accountable, and that wouldn't happen. And really, when it comes to culture and systems, we're bar none. And that improves our instruction, because if you don't have the instructional model of releasing control to kids to get them to work at their grade level that they need to be working at, which is challenging students, making it interesting, making it fun, giving them opportunities, then we can't, that's what makes us different. And one more thing I will say is our choice programs and our connectivity understanding of the K through 12 system, of giving kids opportunities to advanced courses, to career pathways, which with our Classroom to Careers initiative, just really kind of encapsulates what we do. So I mentioned a lot, but I hope you see and kind of paint the picture of what the board's kind of tasked us with, what our superintendents, directed staff to do, and I'm just proud to be, again, a team member on a great team with
Thank you,
all the great people.
And I'll add a couple things, and I'll address a couple of comments that a few of the board members made. First of all, I think with our high schools, we don't wait till a student is a senior to say, oh no, they may not graduate. It's all about early intervention. It's about, okay, what are the graduation requirements? It's about making sure we have everybody, adults in the system, that have eyes on students that are struggling, and then what can we do to support those students to make sure that they're passing their classes, they're coming to school, they've got to pass the reading exam, they've got to pass the algebra exam. I also wanted to make a point with regards to Dr. Summer talking about math. Math is volatile simply because of AMP, which is the Accelerated Math Program. Right now, we have approximately 25% of our grades 3, 4, and 5 students taking acceleration, which means they are moving a grade faster than everybody else and are taking that assessment. So many of the school districts, for example, Indian River doesn't offer AMP. They don't offer accelerated opportunities for students in elementary school. We're very aggressive with our accelerated opportunities for our elementary students, because what that does is it creates an opportunity for them. If they're in AMP, they can take algebra or geometry in 6th and 7th grade instead of waiting for 8th grade. Now think about that. We've got students in 7th grade or 6th grade passing the algebra exam. That is a high school requirement for graduation that they passed in 6th grade. So those students, as soon as they hit high school, they can start taking college classes. So we're, when we talk about volatility, we're really being compared in the state, apples and oranges, based on what we offer our kids versus what most of the districts in the state offer to their students. So I think that, St. Lucie Public Schools is very unique in the opportunities it affords our students because our parents demand it. If your child learns at a faster rate than other children, you should be afforded opportunities to take that accelerated opportunity and not, just because you're in 3rd grade, that's your curriculum, or because 4th grade, that's your curriculum. So that's the 4th grade number in math was down. Craig, go back to the scorecard slide real quick. There it is. So that cohort of students is approximately 450 students smaller than the 5th grade cohort. It's because the 5th grade cohort includes all of the AMP students that are taking that, they're 4th graders, but they're taking the 5th grade test.
Is that statute, do they have to take the 5th grade test?
I'm saying if they're an AMP, that's the assessment they're taking because we're accelerating them. So that
I get it, that's what
yeah.
they're studying, but
Correct.
they have to take the test that they're studying, or can they take the test of their grade?
They could take the test of their grade, but we have them take the 5th grade test because that's the whole purpose. We want to accelerate them so they have those opportunities. And I'd also like to add to, we're kind of used to seeing the scorecard including science, which is 5th, 8th grade in biology, and social studies, which is 7th grade civics and 11th grade U.S. history. So there's a whole lot of things left to be populated here. All I can tell you is we're in really good shape moving into 2nd semester based on these scores. I'm thrilled about the reading, quite frankly. And this is completely, I would expect this from our math. The more important metric for us is going to be how students do on the middle school algebra and geometry exam, and also the high school students, how they're performing on algebra and geometry, because that has been a source of emphasis for us at the high school level, because I don't believe the students have performed very well, and that is something that we've worked on very diligently to try to improve the instruction there.
So you mentioned about the children that are accelerating and high expectations and moving them forward, et cetera. Talk to us a little bit about the children who are struggling. How are we getting them, moving them up to the next notch? Because we have a lot of children that would be struggling within the district, but are doing very well right now. So what are we doing there?
Well, we have systems of support with regards to MTSS and supports where the students have rotations. They get additional support if they're below grade level in reading. And I'd also like to add, our kindergarten readiness tends to be really, really low, and that is directly tied to economics of the families. So, but what you find, though, as the students matriculate through our system, and by the time they get in 9th and 10th grade, last year was the first year our 9th and 10th grade proficiency was literally identical to the state, which shows you over time, when they're in 3rd grade, our proficiency level is lower, but between 3rd and 10th grade, we catch our students up to where they need to be and then graduate them at some of the highest rates in the state. I think this year we were 11th in the state in graduation rate. And we usually hover in the top 10.
Go ahead, move on.
Excellent. I defer back to Dr. Prince.
Okay, the next is going to be,
I'm sorry, Dr. Summer, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
don't try to run away, Dr. Summer.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Richardson. Yes, ma'am.
That's fine, thank you. So I wanted to go back to attendance.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to start there. Well, let me start with, Dr. Mills mentioned that, you call in to the principals when the kids need like additional help or or you do call in and make mention that, we need to keep an eye on these kids. Is that what you said?
Very seldom do I have to do that because the schools are doing such a great job with each child that we
Okay.
work with. Very seldom.
Okay.
But when a child does show up, like recently I had a child that was on my mind with my conversation, that the work that he was getting, which was his homework, was way above what he was able to do. And so, way above. And so we had to literally not help him do his homework because he couldn't understand. So I got in contact with the school. Principal jumped right on it. And now the child is getting not just his regular homework, but he's getting extra work that is on his level, so he's not left behind.
Yeah.
While everybody else is excelling, he's stuck. And so he's been able to, and the principal got right on it, he's been able to do the work now that is being sent, still with help. He still needs help, so that's why I wanted to know what we were doing within the school district to address children such as him. And so, yeah, so very rarely do I do that, but when I do, the principal's right on top of it.
Okay, I mean, and kudos obviously to the principal that they are, but I guess my question is, like, you're a board member, so, I think that's the expectation. However, if I were like a Head Start or somebody that's not sitting on a board, can we call in? What is the protocol then if we have a child like that, and we want them to bring that child to the principal's or the teacher's attention, what would the protocol be for them?
Doc, do you want me to? Yeah, I mean, Dr. Prince mentioned multi-tiered systems of support is huge for us, as well as using data points. I think what's worth mentioning is scheduling. Scheduling for each school site, whether it's an elementary, a middle, or a high school, is a multi-month process using multiple data points to identify students that are weak academically and maybe have attendance issues, and then to build them a schedule that's going to fill their needs for the coming year, whether it's the proper teacher or on some type of intervention schedule that will address the very issues that you occur, and to be proactive. Do you want to expand on that? Looks like you have a...
Well, I guess my question is, can I pick up the phone?
Oh, of
and
course.
just call the principal and say, listen, I mean, is that an acceptable method or way of getting the principal's attention? If I
As an individual,
Yes.
any individual
Or-
that, we always say, any individual that's going to reach out to our schools deserves a response, and a response in a timely manner. Okay, 24 hours should be the expectation. That's what we do. So by all means, if anyone ever has a question and they reach out to anyone at the school site, whether it's a teacher, administrator, or the principal, our expectation is a response is provided, correct? Yes.
Okay, I just want, because we have, we probably have cases like those where we need to reach out because we have a struggling child in our daycare, in our VPK, whatever, in a school. We want them to get some, or make sure that and I'm sure but I want to do my due diligence.
And by all means, I'll say it publicly, I'm the chief of schools. If someone doesn't get a response from any of the schools, feel free to share my email address and I will get back with them right away. But I don't think that'll happen often because our schools are very proactive to the community.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes,
ma'am. And, I want the community to understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
So let me go to absenteeism. So I was told that there is, and I'm looking at the data here, and so maybe you can explain that there is a lot of absenteeism right now amongst our Hispanic students. So is that is that a reality? And if that is the reality, what are we doing? And if it's not, then let's get it out there.
We had heard that over the past year or two, and we
No, I
pulled it.
mean right now.
Yeah, we pulled it a couple of times.
Right now.
We'll confirm that with data. We have not had any issues with our proportional attendance, but we'll make a note to pull back around, hearing that from you, and respond to that.
Yes, I would like us to look very deeply into that because, especially in a certain, in our green zone area, I believe I was told that, there are a lot of our kids that are not attending school. So, that's a concern.
We do periodic checks, but we'll double check it this week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I wanted to go back to the PM2 and PM3, the math and the English, where in 2024 it was higher than it was in 2025. So, right? 2025.
The scale score point growth, is this one?
Yeah, that's the one.
There you go.
So I guess in 2024, that was a good year then,
In 2024, we made significant growth in 2024.
right?
But if you look at the math, and I planned for this, so hold on, I'll come up there. Testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, we were worried there was a lot of data points, so just in case. In math in 2024, we did make a bigger point growth
Right.
than in 2025.
Exactly.
But that was for the first part of the year from August to December.
Okay,
The second part of the year, from December to May, between PM2 and PM3, the growth was less. You got to combine those two numbers. So we actually made a better growth overall in 2025. However, this was still really good. And this year, we're a little bit ahead where we were last year, but this will be the big number here. What do we do now?
okay. So for me then, I guess it's the end of the road. It is the PM1 and PM2. I know those are things that we have to look at.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's a PM3 score that counts.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and we've done correlation studies. The better the start, but typically the better the finish.
Because
So-
that's a little confusing. It's like, okay, well, we're doing good, but we're not doing so good,
Correct.
but it's that last, it's that,
Same thing with reading. We were a little better 2 years ago than last year, but the second part of the year, we made up for the difference.
okay.
And may I also add that PM2 to PM3 last year, that 13.87, we ended up with the highest math increase in the state at 8%. So we had an exceptional year, and like you said before, earlier, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I think that we're poised to make the same kind of a jump. The other thing that Dr. Summer didn't mention is the number of days that the window's open. You want to talk about how we test our students very early in the window?
Yes, sir.
As opposed to later in the window?
Yeah, so the window's open from early December to essentially, mid-January, almost late January. In some schools, especially in math, it becomes a big deal. Some schools test math mid-January, and kids have received a month more of instruction, and they learn more about fractions in fourth grade, as an example, because it's a full year test. So that does impact us, but we feel the value of testing early to be able to see what we're doing, and to keep it consistent with years past outweighs just kind of padding our stats for PM2. I did mention that in the beginning, Dr. Prince, I promise.
And last but not least, I'm going back to Mrs. Aronson's question about the funding. So when you become an A school, or when you get all of these different increases or incentives for excellence, let me say it that way, that money goes directly to the school,
Correct.
and it's used for,
It's teacher recognition funds, and the the individual school. Helen, I don't know, do you know the specific rule? They've got to vote on it by a certain amount of time.
Yes, they have till February 1st.
Go ahead and use the mic if you want, or sit
oh,
here.
that's when you become an A school.
No, you can increase your letter grade. School recognition goes if you go from a D to a C, C to a B, any grade increase, or if you remain an A.
The only funding attached to the PM3 results, and there's nothing attached to 1 and 2. The only funding attached is the total school grade, combines all the tested cells. If the school grade is an A or improves 1 letter grade or more, then the school earns school recognition dollars. They have until February 1st to decide as a faculty and staff how they want to utilize those funding sources. They need their school advisory council to approve or also to weigh in on that decision, and there's only certain categories that they can utilize those funds for. For the faculty and staff. That is the main purpose and use of those dollars across the state.
So the faculty and staff,
No, that is a
Depends.
school-based decision.
okay.
The faculty and staff decide within each school separately how they're going to split up the funds. And every school culture is different, and they all decide differently. And it's very much dictated by statutory language, how that money can be used.
And this is the one that if you don't use it or decide by a certain time, it's decided for you?
Yes, if you don't decide by February 1st, all of the money is used to pay bonuses to the teachers only, and only the teachers that are there that current year,
Okay,
not the previous year when the school grade was earned.
thank you. Those are my questions, Dr. Summers, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Chairman.
All right, now we've got Dr. Wild with the Schools of Hope.
Good morning, everyone. Tori Ingersoll, board members, Superintendent Prince. I am going to be covering the Schools of Hope initiative, which has been something that has developed over time, but there's been a lot of concern across the state with Schools of Hope this year in particular due to some recent changes. And so I'm going to go through it to explain the history so that you get an understanding of why this concern has generated across districts, including charter schools. If you look up Schools of Hope on the DOE website, you'll find this definition, and this was the original definition, and School of Hope is actually a charter school, but it is operated by a Hope operator, so it is different than what we currently see in terms of charter schools. And in the original rule for a School of Hope, they must have been located in the attendance zone of a school that is persistently low performing or within 5 miles of that school, whichever is greater. So essentially, the whole intent was for that School of Hope to serve the students that are attending a persistently low performing school. And then a Hope operator, you can see the definition of that, how it's different than a charter school, is that they have to meet a criteria and be identified by the Florida Department of Education, designated as a School of Hope. It did start in 2017, and the stated purpose, still on the DOE website, is to attract more charter schools to the state of Florida from outside of the state. And currently there are 6 Schools of Hope designated in Florida, and they're listed here. See, Mater Academy is one of the more active ones. KIPP, New Jersey, they're all listed right there. Success Academy is one that is moving more and more to Florida. What has changed since 2017? Several things, and they relate directly to Schools of Hope. First is the definition itself of persistently low performing has changed multiple times. The area that a School of Hope may locate in is now pretty much unrelated to the low performing school. And I'll explain that in just a second. And also what changed this year in particular is now a School of Hope can co-locate in an existing operating school. And that has caused a lot of concern across the state. So a persistently low-performing school, prior to 17, we did have 100 lowest performing schools. It was just a ranking among elementary schools. And then that expanded in 2013-14 to include 300 schools. And then that changed completely, and you can see in bold letters there. In 2016-17, they did define persistently low-performing school as earning 3 consecutive grades lower than a C. And that wasn't just elementary schools, any grade configuration. And so basically that is saying D and F schools. If you are stuck in a cycle of earning Ds and Fs, that was considered a persistently low-performing school. But then in 18-19, they said, if you were a D or an F for 3 years out of 5 and had not earned an A or a B in the last 2 years, you were also a persistently low-performing school. So this is when it starts to change quite a bit in that a B school or an A school could be designated as a persistently low-performing school. The new definition as of 25-26, so this year, is the first one that I already said. A D, you get a D or an F 3 out of the previous 5 years, and you haven't been able to get a B or an A in the most recent 2 years. Or a school that's closed, that's very rare. Or a school in the bottom 10% in either 3rd grade ELA or 4th grade math. So they've expanded the criteria beyond just D and F schools. So what else has changed? That's where they can locate. So just a reminder, they used to have to be located within 5 miles of a persistently low-performing school. Now it has expanded in 2 ways. The first is that they can be within 5 miles of a persistently low-performing school or within 5 miles of a Florida Opportunity Zone. An opportunity zone, that language was added in 2019. That is actually just a designation by the Department of Treasury, and it was, those regions across the state are identified to incentivize businesses to come to areas that might be economically depressed or need some, a boost, an economic boost. They're not related to schools. So that was added to the definition of where they could locate. And then this year, they expanded it even further to say that they could be located outside of the Opportunity Zone or the low-performing school and further than 5 miles away if the district had available building or space in a school anywhere in the district. So essentially, it's really no longer related to the persistently low-performing school because it could be anywhere in a district. And some of the districts that have a large footprint in terms of miles, it could be so far away that not one student could attend from a persistently low-performing school. So that raises a lot of concern. The co-location part was added in 2025 as well, and this means that a school district must permit a School of Hope operator to move into any underused, vacant, or surplus facilities and receive facility-related services from the school district. And the new rule, it says at no cost to the School of Hope operator. So they can actually co-locate in an existing operating school, and the school districts are responsible financially for the facility-related services such as the custodial services, transportation, and so forth. It goes further to clarify that it is without limitation that you provide these services. And the services that they outlined here within the language are custodial, maintenance, school safety services, food services, nursing services, and student transportation on all days that the School of Hope is open. And their calendar does not have to mirror the school district calendar. They can be open different days than the school district. If they are receiving transportation dollars, safety and transportation dollars, those are remitted back to the school district, but those categoricals are not enough to cover the costs for those services. Hence the heightened level of concern from school districts right now. And this does impact our employee workload as well. So if a school all of a sudden moves from 600 students to 900 students, we either have to bring on new staff or the workload increases on the existing employees that would be servicing this other school. Additionally, you have to proportionately allocate classroom space, administrative space, and storage space, including lockers, to the School of Hope operator. So that's based on the number of students. And when you get into facilities, schools are not built for this type of sharing of facilities to the extent that this statute dictates. So you're sharing it proportionally, but there's only one principal's office. Who gets that? That all has to be worked out. That's just an example. Also, the space that's dedicated to the School of Hope must be contiguous, meaning connected. And that can be difficult too with certain types of specialty areas within a school, art rooms, dance studios, and so forth. That would be very challenging. And when a school does a notice and is going to move into an existing school, the current school must move out of the space that the new school is going to move into within 7 days after the school year ends. So it's a very quick process. Probably a little bit more challenging is sharing of the common space within a school. Cafeteria, the gymnasium, recreation areas, parking lots, storage spaces, auditoriums, and there cannot be any limitations on this. So that has to be worked out in the management plan between the School of Hope and the school district. However, it does also say that the School of Hope students must have access to the cafeteria during traditional lunch hours. And that could be quite challenging if you're trying to keep the students separate within the school building, because I know all of you have been to our schools during lunchtime, and you see how the students funnel in, and one table empties, the next table comes in. You're using it continuously to be able to get even close to what we would consider traditional lunch hours within a school. Also with things like gymnasium, if you are using that all day long, you hire your PE teachers to serve your population. If it's a rainy day, how do you split it between two different schools? Right, on a normal day, even the existing teachers within a school, split it up. I go outside, you take the gym. If everybody is forced to use the gym, that would actually be quite a disruption to the school day. Also, the School of Hope, which is a form of a charter school, they are able to use our district student information system at no cost. That is already true of all charter schools. And they also have an additional funding source. After they're open for 5 years, they can apply for additional funding. As related to the new changes related to Schools of Hope, they did establish November 11th as the date that School of Hope operators could send out their applications anywhere where they intended to co-locate. And there was an outline process that is to be followed by designated School of Hope operators. So what happened on November 11th? 690 applications went out on that one date across the state. Multiple charter schools and School of Hope operators sent out these building notices to 22 school districts. In those notices, they identified 475 unique schools. 47 of the schools they wanted to move into were actually schools of excellence, which means continued A status. However, at least 454 of the 690 were not from designated School of Hope operators. So they were denied on that basis. Those were not qualified schools that were able to apply. 236 of them were, and those are all in process at this time unless they have been denied. And just going back to the concept of denying, you really can't, there's very little for which a school district could deny, and it's called material impracticability, which is not defined in the statute. If you look at this is the distribution of building notices that went out that day, and you can see most of them were desiring to co-locate in existing A, B, or C schools. Very few were actually in D and F schools. Some additional information I mentioned, you can only deny based on material impracticability. Does a School of Hope school have to ask for another school of the same type? No. A high school can ask to move into an elementary school and vice versa. How is the available space determined? Right now, it is determined based on the FISH report, which is the map that outlines what the space is to be utilized for versus the number of students in the school. Because this passed so quickly, there was no time for people to review their FISH reports, add things, and there are some things that are not reported on the FISH report, such as VPK classrooms. Those are not on the FISH report. If we have contracted with somebody to use the space, that is not on the FISH report. So those things were not considered in this original legislation. Some of the concerns raised, this is not all-inclusive, is number one, that it did expand this, especially this year, it did expand around the original intent around Schools of Hope. So one of the things that we've been asking for them to take a look at the state level is going back to narrowing where a School of Hope could be located based on persistently low-performing DNF schools, and remove the opportunity zone language altogether, and also the language that allows it to be anywhere in a district where there might be some space. Also, there is nothing in there that allows a school district to essentially evict a school if they are not following state safety laws and they're putting students within the building at risk. You know, we have very tight systems now. We do very well, as you know, on the state safety inspections. And these schools would be trained and held to the same expectation. However, we don't have authority over a charter school, and so that's concerning if they're sharing a building with our existing students. And then also, there is no definition provided for what you can deny, and the FISH report definition of space is too restrictive. So we would like them to take a look at other uses, such as when space is being used for affordable daycare or pre-K, VPK specifically. And then the additional burden on the district budgets, because these schools would be earning their share of the FEFP, their share of all of the categoricals, and yet the burden and the financial burden is on the school district and the wear and tear on the building and so forth. So we were asking that they allow for either fees to be assessed or some financial structure that would remove the burden off districts. I will tell you, though, yesterday there was a DOE-hosted webinar. They are working on this board rule right now. I did attend that webinar. They are going to come out with new language. They did not have it available yesterday in the webinar for us to give feedback on. So basically what yesterday's webinar allowed was for districts to send our concerns or our questions so that as they're in the process of new rulemaking, they may be able to address some of those if it doesn't violate the statute directly. They are expected, they said they would be publishing their draft language by the end of this week, and so we will take a look at that and provide feedback. And then they stated that their intent is to have a new rule on the February 20th State Board of Education agenda. Right now that is scheduled for February 20th in Key West. And that is what we have to share today regarding School of Hope. Do you have any questions?
Questions, board members? Dr. Mills?
Yes, sir. With the School of Hope, I want an understanding in regards to the schools that are persistently low-performing schools. The School of Hope are able to get all of those students in that particular school? How does that work?
No, they can serve any students. They're supposed to give preference to students that were zoned for a persistently low-performing school. But if none of those students want to attend, they can still open and serve any students that want to attend. So if there's available space, 90 miles away from a persistently low-performing school, currently they can move into that location, and they wouldn't be serving any of those students. But that is the intent, that they serve those
Okay,
students.
so that school, that low-performing school is not closed down, it's just that the Schools of Hope can recruit their students and other students that live in that particular zone.
That is absolutely correct.
And then they can go to any zone, any school that the School of Hope has been approved to be able to share.
The School of Hope could serve any students.
Yeah.
But yes, the persistently low-performing school wouldn't be shut down unless the school district chose to take that
And
direction.
so the public school has to have room in the school to be able to take this School of Hope and allow them to share.
Yes,
Just wanted to clear it.
yes,
on that.
they would have to have room, available space.
So I just wanted to, first of all, I don't think that legislators go down a path to where they have badly intentioned legislation. I think all legislation from our legislators are well-meaning and well-intentioned, but sometimes it's the law of unintended consequences when certain things we don't think through. So, you've got districts in the state of Florida that, you've got all this square footage in schools, and there's maybe 100 students enrolled at the school, and it's paid for by taxpayers, and it is an underutilized facility. And these charter operators, it's an opportunity for them to utilize that space, and I think that maybe that's what it's intended for, okay? But what it's not intended for is, for example, because this would apply, and I'm giving you an example of an extreme under the current rules. Legacy High right now has capacity. They've got no senior class. So if I was a School of Hope operator, I could say I want a proportional share of that school because it's being underutilized. Now, there is no mechanism under the current legislation for us to say no. So I think that that's one of the reasons that, the superintendents expressed concern about it, and I think the legislators are listening. I know our local delegation, they want to fix this legislation so that it's the way it's intended is going to be the way that it's implemented. But I think that initially, because it was passed so hastily, that a lot of things weren't well thought out. And I go back to the eviction. If I've got a school co-located, we have every quarter we have an executive session on safety, and they get into the minutiae of how many unlocked doors did we have across campus, and they hold us accountable for that. And just imagine if you've got a co-located school, and what happens if they don't care about the safety of your students, they don't do threat assessments, or they leave the doors unlocked. How do we evict them if the safety of our public school students are compromised? So those are the kind of things that we've tried to work with our local legislative delegation on to try to fix some of the issues that we've had with the legislation. Did I accurately say that,
Yes,
Dr. Weil?
yes, very accurately.
I actually did. Dr. Mills, are you finished?
Yes, I'm finished.
Go ahead, Dr.
Thank you.
Ms. Richardson.
Thank you. So security was really one of my the questions, because at this rate, we couldn't, there wouldn't even be a way to monitor. We'd have to have so many monitors to make sure that these doors are locked, or the things that we need to do that are in place are actually being done. So security was definitely one of a concern. And the DNF schools, they could at any time, like, those are not the schools that they really want to be in. Because the opportunity schools, the A, B, and C schools are the ones that that's the area that they really want to be in.
And to be fair, that's what the data suggests. I can't speak for the charter operators, but I'm just saying that the slide that Dr. Wild showed is the letters that were received identifying the schools. I don't think there was a single F school on there. There were a couple of D schools, but they were A, B, and C rated schools that received the letters from the charter operators.
Right, this one.
Right.
This,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
And to be fair, you know, part of one of the things that I wanted to address with the legislation is to go back to the initial intent of the Schools of Hope, which were to function in areas where we're not doing a good job. Hey, you know, 10 years ago when I got here, we had 9 DNF schools. And if we can't fix that problem, then it should be fair that if somebody else can come in and do it, then, you know, I respect that. I'm completely okay with that. But we've resolved those issues in this district. We don't have any DRF schools, and what I would desire would be the legislation to return to that intent. Public schools are just that would be my desire. Now, my desire and reality are two different things. But to your point, Mrs. Richardson, you're absolutely correct.
But I would think that outside of the DNF schools, which I do believe that if we have DNF schools, then it becomes our duty to bring those schools up to A, B, and C schools. But separate and apart from that would be that if they're going to want to take over a school, it would be a school that's empty or halfway empty or whatever in term, as opposed to being a DNF school. You
That
know,
is-
if we have the space and, you know, and at that rate, I would think that if you're going to pay, you have to pay to be wherever you are right now, that you would have to pay, because it's the same taxpayer dollar that we are going to use for you. So you have to pay to be able to use the facility or at least contribute something to the facility.
That is another legislative priority, that if they are going to, if a charter operator is going to use the facility, then it's like anything else. They, you know, they should have to bear some of the financial burden of that. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't think it makes sense to the public if a charter operator is going in, they're operating a school, and then the district is having to accrue the costs of the maintenance, the air, even potentially the security, custodians. Those are all things that I don't think were necessarily considered when the legislation was initially passed. But I do think that the legislature, to be fair, everything that we're hearing from the folks that are in Tallahassee is that these are priorities for them as well. And I want to be fair, because I think that they recognize and are attempting to fix some of the loopholes in the legislation that you just mentioned.
Okay, so it's a good thing that we're having this conversation, because I think that rather than have, you know, they're trying to do this, the School of Hope, we have to know that there is hope, that we're trying to fix this.
Yes.
We're trying to fix it. So, so this is good conversation. If anybody's listening, bless you. If anybody's listening, that they are hearing that we're not just sitting on it, that we're doing something and so when that time comes, then you'll have something to give back to us,
Yes.
and then we can strategize and
Yes.
see where do we go from here.
Exactly, and I think that, you know, I'd had too many comments, you know, private conversations with board members where they'd asked me that we needed to have a public meeting about what this is, and there have been letters that we received, and I've, you know, notified board members every step of the way. But I also, first of all, do I think it's flawed legislation? The answer to that question is yes. Do I think that the legislators understand now what some of those flaws are? The answer to that question is yes. Have we had productive conversations with our local legislative delegation? Absolutely. So I want to be fair. They're in Tallahassee right now, and I will certainly update the board to what I anticipate will be some adjustments to this. In fact, Dr. Wild just watched a state board rule hearing yesterday to see if they were going to make any, you know, adjustments, and we didn't get a whole lot out of that, did we?
Well, because they did not have draft language
Yeah.
yet, but we were able to, in the comments, I submitted 8 or 9 suggestions/questions, and so did other districts across the state. And they told us the different methods that we could use if we have additional suggestions once we see the new language. So we will be paying close attention to that, and we will be providing feedback.
Because that was one of the things that I understood, is that this was not a done deal, that we are working, it's still in the works.
Yes, the statute did pass, and the original board rule passed. So everything I shared is the existing law.
Right.
But they are revisiting the rule, and our legislators are aware of the concerns. If the rule is not enough to entirely fix it, we will continue to work with our legislation. Legislators.
And just to be clear, that we have no schools of hope here in St. Lucie County.
We do not.
Okay, so.
Correct.
right. Thank you.
Just the reality of it is anytime someone comes into your facility, it's just a disaster. When I was in New Orleans, we would go double sessions back in the good old days, and they would have another organization come in, run the second session, and they just tore the buildings up. And then security trying to find your stuff, and computers were torn up. It was just, anytime someone comes into your facility, never works out. They don't care. It's like right now at your house. No one takes care of your house like you take care of your house. And that's the problem. So, thank you, Dr. Wild.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Sorry, Dr. Mills, go ahead.
There were several schools of hope that applied around the state of Florida. Did you say like 600 and something, or a certain number you gave us?
Yes.
Did anybody apply for St. Lucie County? That's what I
Yes.
thought I saw.
Yes.
Even though we don't have any failing, low-performing schools, they still applied.
Every district in the state has opportunity zones, and we have 4 in St. Lucie County. So St. Lucie County was subject to an application from a charter school that is not an approved School of Hope operator. So we were able to deny it based on that. They didn't qualify to apply, but we did have an application for 10 schools.
Interesting. Okay.
Mr. Ingersoll, I was wondering if we could take a 10-minute break before we do the last two?
Oh, 2?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Yes, we have 2. I'm just wondering, they're very, very important, and they involve the budget, so it's,
Sure, let's take a break.
all right.
Here in 1 minute, at 11:05. Prince, we're back. We're excited to listen to two more things.
All right, so we've got Dr. Summer is going to present on this. I want to kind of back up a little bit. And, you know, I arrived in the district in 2015. And whenever you make a job change, especially as significant as the one that I was considering, 2 years previous, I had made a job change, and I left Palm Beach County and went to Orange County. And then the opportunity presented itself when Superintendent Gent was hired here. You know, he offered me a job to come and work here, and that included coming and touring. I've never been in St. Lucie County other than just passing through on I-95 or the Turnpike, so I never really spent a considerable amount of time here. So I did come and visit, but also you do your research online and you look into the school district. And some of the things that were interesting is the online research. In 2004, and I asked, and Mr. Ingersoll was elected in 2004. The district was recognized for district efficiency through OPAGA, which is the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability, and they received the state seal of recognition for best financial management. The district has always been very lean, and I say that by experience because prior to being here, I was in Alachua County, and then I went to Palm Beach, and then when I went to Orange County, and there's so many different ways to skin a cat, all right? And what I'm saying is every school district and every school has its own DNA. You know, you've got different people serving different roles, but the same things have to get done, all right? It's just how the district mobilizes and gets those things done, and sometimes they're by different roles. Different jobs, different functions. So I want to be fair before we have this presentation because, you know, our district manages itself, I would say, through a very cost-efficient model where, you know, when I was in Orange County, when I arrived there, I marveled at the number of assistant principals I had at the high school, and not only assistant principals, I had deans as well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a different experience than I had in Palm Beach County, where I had fewer resources, but different resources. So when I arrived in St. Lucie County as the deputy superintendent and working in the district office, I realized there's not a lot of people here. You know, we're supporting the entire school district, and there just wasn't a lot of district administrators. And then when we look at our allocation process, even school-based administrators. The responsibility of our principals and assistant principals is just enormous, and I can't give them enough compliments with the amount of work and responsibility that keeps getting added to them that they have to do. So today's presentation is really about district efficiency. I had this presentation and research done actually after my first year here to share with the board, and you know what? I just sat on it, and something happened in October that had me kind of revisit this again, and I was actually having staff work on this prior to this happening. But I received a call that our district was mentioned at another county school board meeting. And I wanted to, this is actually the nexus of this presentation that Dr. Summer is going to present at this time. Dr. Summer?
Thank you, Dr. Prince, Chairman Ingersoll, Board. So it is all about our operational efficiency and more specifically looking at our use of district funds for school and district administrators, but considering our needs, our size, and our location. That's what we'll be looking at, and we'll be comparing ourselves to other school districts across the state of Florida, which there are 67. Dr. Prince referred to our Florida Commissioner of Education, spoke at a school board meeting, it was October 28th, 2025, at the Leon County School Board meeting. It's a brief video. I'm actually going to go ahead and play it for you, unless you want to tee it up, sir.
So first of all, the commissioner has gone to board meetings, local school board meetings, which is a little different. But in some of those board meetings, he has gone and leveled some criticism based on a number of topics that are being discussed statewide. So this particular one was in Leon County, which of course is in Tallahassee. Dr. Summer.
Here we go.
Welcome, Commissioner Stasi Kamoutsis, and Commissioner, we'll give you the opportunity to speak before the rest of our persons to be heard, and thank you for being here tonight. It's an honor to have you from down the street. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Cox. Good evening. Good evening, members of the Leon County School Board and Superintendent Rocky Hanna. I'm here this evening because the Leon County Schools continues to demonstrate a need of improvement in leadership, both at the district level and with certain members of the school board. Despite Governor DeSantis championing over $6 billion, nearly $6 billion over the past 6 years, this district continues to hold up teacher pay increases. Just last year, more than 6 months passed before teachers were able to see a pay increase in their paychecks. And just this year, $1.36 billion was dedicated solely for teacher pay increases, which is an increase of over $100 million from the year before. Instead of Leon County learning from its past mistakes and making sure at the beginning of the school year they had a plan in place to be able to prioritize teacher pay, we are in the same boat we've been in year after year. And this year's budget also provides $15.9 billion in funding for Florida's K-12 public school system. That includes the highest per student FTE at over $9,100, which is an increase of nearly $150 per student. One would expect that the Leon County School Board would allocate these funds responsibly to support teachers and enhance student outcomes. Instead, it appears that much of this funding is being used to support executive pay raises rather than classroom instruction. In fact, several administrators at the district level received raises exceeding $10,000 annually. Leon County also maintains a disproportionately large executive and administrative staff compared to other counties. I looked into other districts and randomly chose St. Lucie County, for example. St. Lucie County serves nearly 49,000 students. That's more than 20,000 students here in Leon County. In St. Lucie County, they have 208 executive staff and administrators. Do you know how much we have here in Leon County? 217, for a district that has 20,000 students less than St. Lucie County. This imbalance highlights a troubling trend that district executives are prioritized over our teachers.
So, the reason I wanted to share the video is when this occurred, I received a number of phone calls with regards to what is the source of that information. Like, whenever you get a kind of a statewide, when you're called out for something, whether positive or negative, there, it creates conversation as to, okay, where is this information coming from? And the source of this information is the crux of Dr. Summers' presentation with regards to how we utilize our resources. And in all due respect to the 66 other districts across the state, every district decides how they're going to prioritize how they use their dollars, and sometimes different positions or different responsibilities or roles within a district take on the responsibilities of what needs to get done. So I just want to be fair before we get rolling here. But I'd like to say that St. Lucie Public Schools, we pride ourselves on putting almost all of our resources into classrooms and classroom teachers.
And so that's the question, is how efficiently does our school district operate specifically when looking at similar districts with enrollment, economics, and then considering performance. You know, what are you getting out of what your investment is, and in terms of spending on administrators. And this is the publicly available file that the commissioner was referencing. There's the source. It's looking at 2024, 2025 data. So these numbers are based on last school year. Just consider that when we look at it. And also we're focusing specifically on comparing apples to apples and looking at the following. I'll define some terms. Full-time administrative staff for school-based is looking at principals and assistant principals. Non-school-based is, again, district administrative staff that are not assigned to a school, like officials, administrators, managers. We call them directors, executive directors, things like that, okay? And we want to define what efficiency is relating to the number of students. So efficiency is the number of those said administrators, school-based and non-school-based, per 1,000 FTE, or students, which I'll define in a second. So if your number of efficiency is 5, that means that your district has 5 administrators per 1,000 students, okay? That makes it fair based on the size of your district. It's based on the 1,000 students. So if you look at a 5.0, gives you 5 administrators per 1,000 students. A district with a lower number is green, right? That's more efficient because you have less administrators per 1,000 students. A district with a higher number, the red, is less efficient. A higher number means you have more administrators per 1,000 students. Make sense? So I know your brains are going to, okay, what is our number in St. Lucie County? I direct you to the slide that says district administrators or non-school based per 1,000 students, we're at 1.02. School administrators per 1,000 students, we're at 2.5. So for every 1,000 students, we have 3.52. That's our efficiency number that are employed by St. Lucie Public Schools. And you have a little picture on the bottom right of 3.5 people. So you're thinking, okay, when you look at the 1.02, which is the non-school based, and the 2.5, which is the school based, again, per 1,000 students, we actually rank 3rd out of 67 districts in the state. There's actually only 2 districts that are lower when it comes to their efficiency number. It's Santa Rosa and Osceola. And if you notice in the bottom right, they're different sizes as well as different free reduced lunch rates, which we'll dig into in just a second and compare ourselves to our neighbors and our schools that are facing the challenges with free reduced lunch as us. So we're 3 out of 67. First off, let's take a look at our local and adjacent school districts. So this is a data chart I'll point you to. And you can see that you have these basically ranked by efficiency and your state efficiency ranked. Comparing us to our neighbors, St. Lucie, Broward, Brevard, Palm Beach, Dade, Martin, Indian River, look at the efficiency column of 3.52. We are the most efficient compared to our neighboring and adjacent school districts, which gives us the best overall rank. You can see each of the districts rank in the far right column. St. Lucie is 3rd, Broward is 6th, and so on. And again, that is out of 67. Okay? In fact, when we compare ourselves to districts that are about our size, so each of the districts on this page are about the same size, about 50,000 students. How many additional administrators do they have? These are actual data points from the file that I referenced earlier. So again, we're even. So St. Lucie, we have our administrators, and our non-school and school-based is 190. Collier has an additional 52 at about the same size as us. Lake plus 28. Manatee plus 33, Marion plus 28, St. John's plus 10, and Sarasota plus 38 administrators at their district at approximately the same size as students. The next slide is a what if. So what if we proportion out districts that are not our size? So these were the districts that are our size. The ones that aren't our size, if we level set them, what would happen? So St. Lucie, we have 190, 135 principals and APs and 55 district. Broward, to maintain that ratio, would have to hire 8 people if they were our size. Brevard would have to hire an additional 20. Palm Beach, an additional 24, using proportions if they were our size. And you can see the rest of the list on the right-hand side as to how many additional administrators they would hire based on the ratio if they were our size. Again, this is a what if. Okay, I'll continue. And let's take a look at free reduced lunch. This will be important. There'll be a couple slides on this. We rank this slide by efficiency right here. So you see that all the school districts, which are our neighbors, are ranked by efficiency. Again, here's the ranking of this, and you see us at the top, the most efficient. I've included some additional data points, which is important for us to see. So you'll notice the first column is free reduced lunch rate. See that pop up? And if you notice, not only the most efficient, but our free reduced lunch rate is extremely high at 64%. So we're looking at that first, really the second column. On top of that, we're very proud to say that if you notice the far right column, the district grade, we do maintain the A. And when you look at that data, what it means is that we're one of the most significantly challenged districts in the state, having 64% of our kids on free reduced lunch. That's actually 53 out of 67 districts. The higher that number, the higher our rank. And only 14 school districts have a higher rate. Overall, we're the third most efficient, which is very proud. And with that A rating, it just shows St. Lucie Public Schools does more with less. Let me dig into how much more we do with less. So I have a few highlights. There's a lot of data on this page, so I'll go relatively slow. First is, you notice, I'm looking at districts that are within 10,000 students, or FTE, of St. Lucie Public Schools. These are districts within 10,000 FTE, or students, is a nice way to say it, of St. Lucie Public Schools. And we rank them on free reduced lunch ranking. That what's so impressive about this is that although we have the highest ranking in terms of free reduced lunch rate, we are still the most efficient. Why is that so important? Because there's an impact of poverty on reading proficiency. And there was a national study, a NAEP study, that kind of outlined, well, what is the impact of being a free reduced lunch student versus a non-free reduced lunch student? And actually, the results show that there's an 18-point gap on average in the state of Florida. It was a grade 8 NAEP study that showed that kids that were eligible for free reduced lunch scored significantly lower than their counterparts. Now, considering that, for every 1% additional free reduced lunch rate we have, that's 500 kids. That's a huge number. So when we have 10% more free reduced lunch kids, we have 5,000 students fitting into this number that we've got to catch that gap and outperform our counterparts with kids that are essentially starting the year lower, on average, based on the NAEP study in grade 8. So we're very proud of that. Which gives us our takeaways, is that looking at the data, our takeaway is that we prioritize our classrooms over our administrators, because that's where learning happens. Give us low overhead, and ideally, we want a high return on investment or a high impact. And that's not easy considering last school year, you saw our data points, we were the number one school district improving in math with the challenges that we face, gives us a high return on investment, and ideally, we call ourselves a model of operational efficiency when it comes to our investment in administrators and our teacher-student ratio. So you may have some questions. I'd be happy to take those now.
Board members have any questions? Ms. Aronson?
So I believe at a workshop previously, you guys had mentioned that we had a moratorium on administrative staff at the district level. Is that still in effect?
That's the next presentation. But yes.
Good segue.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
One more question there. When was this data collected?
Hey, and I was gonna say that
Yeah.
this is all for last school year, so it'd be 24-25.
So previous to
Correct.
the moratorium?
Correct.
Okay.
And you'll hear you'll hear additional on that. I'll wait. I won't steal your presentation, Dr. Wild.
Mrs. Richardson, Dr. Mills? Dr. Mills?
No questions, but I want to say I am so proud of our district. I really am. To see what we are accomplishing and doing really is just so tremendous, and I'm just elated. I think I said the other day up at the board meeting that, you know, I'm a Holy Ghost-filled believer, and it just, I really emotionally and spiritually, I am just really excited to see that we are touching lives and making a difference in every child. And what you guys are doing, you're the ones that's doing it, not me, not us. I mean, we play our part in it, but for me, it's like give you full reign to do what you do. Because without me trying to put my input, all my, you know, what I think, because you're doing an excellent job. And I just want you to know and realize that I realize the power that we have in the people here in St. Lucie County. To do more with less is an incredible feat. Thank you. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Richardson?
So, that was a lot of information. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
It was a lot of stats, right? And so, in English, maybe 101, could you just explain to me what am I supposed to get from this?
So school districts have a decision on how they hire individuals, and they make choices. St. Lucie Public Schools' choice is to invest as much as possible in what directly impacts the classroom. One of the ways in which we're demonstrating that is that we don't have a lot of administrators outside the classroom. In fact, when you look at how many administrators we hire based on our student, we're the third best in the state at 67.
Okay, so this is about administrators,
And
not
maybe
necessarily
yeah,
the teachers. It's about how many
It's-
administrators we have per.
correct, at per school and district combined. And maybe a better way to say it is that 64 of the 67 school districts spend more money on administrators based on this data from 24-25 than we do. They spend more. They have more administrators per student than we do. That's a better way to say it.
All right, and that's fair enough. So when I look at administrators and efficiency, I look at efficiently spending the money.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then I look at St. John's County. I mean, they have a lot of money up there, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so, so we are comparing ourselves to a county that has a lot of money.
Yeah, and what I was trying to show with the free reduced lunch is that they have many fewer students percentage-wise that are on free reduced lunch, which we can make the argument it's more challenging when you're in a school district that has more kids in free reduced lunch. And you would think that you could not, we are more efficient, we have to overcome more than they do because they have less free reduced lunch. That's one view an educator can take.
Okay, so therefore then, we are saying that because we have a high free and reduced lunch population, that because we are, the county is a poor county or poorer county, that there is no, we assume that the kids are not.
It takes more to overcome
There
the
we
challenges.
go. There we go. They're challenged. We have a lot of the challenges. So it's the money that drives the ability to learn? Is that?
What we're saying is to make sure that our students learn the most they can, we're investing the most in our classroom teachers as possible to overcome the barriers that we have with our high number of kids on free reduced lunch.
Okay, I'm trying so hard to be politically correct, but I'm just going to throw that out the wind right now. So let me just say it this way. Because we have a poor population here, or the demographic is not as rich as St. John's, therefore then the assumption is that the kids are more challenged when it comes to learning as compared to the kids in St. John that has the money, that has the parents, that has all the resources that they need to learn. right?
Data
So-
can support that, yes.
Okay, so that's the data says that. But we are saying here in this data that not because the kids are, or the demographic is a poor demographic, that they do have the ability to learn.
Correct.
Because you're putting the money into the classrooms.
Correct.
Or not necessarily educate, not the people that are the administration, but you're putting the money in the classroom.
Correct.
Is
And
that what we're
overcoming
saying?
and our model is overcoming those challenges.
Okay, so, so I guess okay, so I didn't understand why we are using St. John's, but I want to make sure that the monies that, not just that we are putting the monies in the classroom, but the monies are going, how can I say, proportionately to the schools that need it the most. Because sometimes I get the impression, or previously, I'm learning, okay, I'm going out, I'm seeing, so I'm just saying this very whatever, that sometimes it's like the Hebrews, you give them the straw and ask them to make bricks. I don't want that to be happening in some of our schools. I want to make sure that the teachers, the staff is given the bricks and not straws. That they're given whatever they need, because we have different demographics, we have different ways of learning, we have different styles, we have to look at the schools, and I
make sure
just
they
want
get
to
what they need.
stress to make sure that they are getting what they need.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, because different learning styles. I just want to make sure that we are
Yes,
giving
ma'am.
them, so all of this money that we're talking about, all of this efficiency, that it is we're not. We are making sure that they are given, the different demographics are given what they
What they
need
need.
and not straw.
Sure.
Okay, so I just threw it out there. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify for the viewers online, we're just not looking at the richest counties, but we looked at 13 different counties. We looked at Broward, Brevard, Palm Beach, Dade, Martin, Mariana, Manatee, Collier, Lake, Sarasota, and St. John's. Oregonate. The last few that I talked about, if you look to the next slide, please. One more, please. This is the slide that reaches our district. Nah, that's not the one I'm looking at. I'm looking at comparing our size. This is the most important one. It has Marion and Manatee. You got to keep on going a little bit further, I think. But these are the sizes that is the same size as St. Lucie County. So,
I'll
it's just
find it for you.
important to realize that we're not
It's
picking
this
out the
one.
richest or the cheapest. Oh, you know what? I probably have one in my, never mind, it's fine. It doesn't matter. We're not picking out the richest or the poorest. What it means is that you have a school of 2,000, we're running on 4 administrators, where some schools are running on 5 to 6 administrators. And what we do with that extra money is we put it in the classroom where we're hiring coaches, we're hiring extra behavior analysts, we're putting the money elsewhere. Instead of having more people sit here at the school district office let's say, 1 for 2, and then Indian River's almost got 2. It's also an extra person per 1,000. So 40,000 people, that's an extra 40 employees that we have out in the field rather than sitting here at the desk. And that's basically what the numbers are saying.
I'm not saying, I just mentioned St. John's because St. John's was here, and I happen to know that St. John's is one of a very, very rich county. But where I'm going with this is that efficiency, I want to make sure, and I'm just putting it out there, that we are not asking our teachers or principals or the schools to build bricks with straws, that we are giving them what they need. I know we are, but I'm putting it out there. I'm making sure that it's not about rich or poor. I just brought it up because we're talking about efficiency, but I just want to make sure, because I have heard, like I said, that, sometimes we are not given what we need in order to meet the needs of this particular demographic of students. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Chairman?
Dr. Mills?
I understand exactly what Ms. Richardson is saying to us, and what she's actually saying that what is most important, which is our students and the people that work directly with our students, which is our educators. I look at this slide here on page 64 that shows the comparison with our free lunch and efficiency and what we've been able to accomplish in spite of having a poorer rated district. To have that A sit there and our efficiency in this area is only 3.52 and is powerful based on the free reduced lunch rate of 64%, that we have accomplished this. So we are doing what we need to do in spite of what the data is saying and what many people go by and say it's impossible. We've proven that it is not impossible to raise up children that are on the poverty level in comparison with the state of Florida, to really use the funding that we have to really make sure that we're doing the best we can to address our teachers' needs, our educators' needs, and not spend a lot of money in areas that is wasteful, really, because we've taken the level of administrators that we have, which also show that we have less administrators than many of these counties, and yet we are still producing what we're producing. So we're using the funding in the right places to produce the right results. That's why I'm so excited today. But I do understand what Ms. Richardson is saying is this is what is needed. This is how we should be doing. And what I enjoy seeing now is that we're doing it. That's why I'm so grateful to all of you, because we're doing it.
I just would like to say, too, that I have been in the classrooms, and I don't know, Dr. Wild, if you are going to be talking about classrooms. You are? Okay. Well, I'll just get ahead of you then. I've been to the classrooms, and I have seen, and I mean, it's not something that we don't know, but these teachers, their energy and the things that they put into our kids, just spending 5 minutes or even 10 minutes in the classroom and I'm tired, because there is so much that's going on in the classroom at any one given time. I mean, they have to have eyes at the back of their heads, okay? And some of these classrooms, they don't have like an assistant, okay? So there is a lot that we're asking of our teachers, okay, for them to do the work and to bring us up to an A district. So the money does really need to go into the schools and not, supervising or micromanaging or whatever, or managing. Okay, it needs to go into the schools because that's our core. It's our students.
And Mrs. Richardson, I hope that now this will be the takeaway,
Yes.
is that efficiency number being so low means we're doing exactly just that. We're spending less on administrators and more on where it needs to be spent in the classroom, especially now at the places where they need the most assistance. That's what the efficiency allows us to do, is to do just that. And the results we're showing are showing that we are doing just that. No DNF schools and a district grade of A with high reduced. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I believe that we are moving in the right
Yeah.
direction,
Yeah.
But Dr. Mills has coined a phrase, but we have some ways to go.
Of course.
So I'm just saying,
Yes.
and I'm putting it out there, what my expectations are for.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Jennifer Richardson, thank you.
I just want to know, we've got 2 more schools to beat. Come on.
Yeah. Stay tuned for 25, 26.
All right, we ready to move on? Mr. Ingersoll?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay. So to your point, Mrs. Richardson, you talked about visiting classrooms, and we visited a few of them, and I get tired watching the teachers myself, and I'm not doing anything, just the amount of energy that it takes to be successful in the classroom. And everything we've accomplished as a district has been on the back of our teachers, and not just our teachers, everybody in the system. Because I always say that a child only needs one meaningful relationship in a school year to be successful, a meaningful relationship with an adult. And also research says that doesn't have to be the teacher. You want it to be the teacher, but it could be a clerk. It could be somebody that works in a cafeteria, food service worker. It could be a bus driver, somebody that's going to ask you about your day, somebody that's going to encourage you to go to school, be that support system that you need. And coming from a family that didn't have really a support system, I found that in the schools, and I was very, very blessed and fortunate. And whenever I go out and visit the schools, I'm so blown away by the passionate people we have working in our system. And the reason I wanted to share the efficiency is there's sometimes this perception that we've got all these people running around the district, and we've got all these principals and assistant principals and executive level staff, and we don't. Our enrollment has grown by 10% in the last 5 years, and executive staff is not, nor is principals and APs. We have not grown in size for the most part, and we are going to have very difficult decisions to make. I've been forwarding you, board members, the Pineapple Report. I've been forwarding you news articles on school closures. You see very difficult budget decisions being made and discussed at board meetings, and we're not there. The good news about our district is I do think that we are planning for the future with reality in mind, with with the competition that we have with regards to charter schools and also private schools and also homeschool and micro schools and all the options that our families have. And I want our families to see that St. Lucie Public Schools is the #1 destination. And I think we are on our way with regards to, we're an A-rated district, and I expect that A to stay up there for as long as I'm here, because that is my single mission, is to make sure every child has an opportunity to learn and grow in our schools. But Dr. Weil is going to present, we do have challenges, and those challenges we are working to mitigate this year, but we are looking at a very challenging forecast that we're going to have some difficult decisions to make. You as a board and me as a superintendent, the things that I'll be recommending, but I will tell you, whatever I recommend to the board, there's a lot of thought and intentionality that goes behind it. I do not recommend to the board, especially financial decisions that are made without great care and without great thought with regards to the impact, because what I don't want it to impact, to your point, Mrs. Richardson, is what's happening in the classroom. Like, that has to be held harmless. That has to be our #1 priority, is teaching and learning and making sure the kids get a first-class public education. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Weil.
Okay, hello again, everybody. Yes, I am going to give you an update on budget overall and our plans to handle some shortfalls, some financial challenges that we're currently faced with. So I'm going to talk about the budget and just some high-level how are we funded each year and what has affected our budget this year, right now, as of today. I'm also going to talk about some initial planning that we have started in terms of cost saving in the short term right now for this school year, and then as we plan into the future and anticipate some of these challenges to continue, and then, of course, there'll be time at the end for questions. I'm going to go over the 3 topics related to the budget that is relevant right now. The first being the most important, and that is our FEFP. And as you know, I know you take courses and get certified as board members. I know that you're aware that there's several calculations that happen throughout the course of every year. that determine our funding. And at the very beginning of the year, we have to use predicted dollars and go from there. So I'm going to go through that. I'm going to talk about how our federal fund picture has changed this school year in particular, and just real quick, the impact of the Family Empowerment Scholarships on this year's budget. For the FEFP, there is a process that every district goes through, facilitated by the state, to predict our enrollment. And then mid-year through the year, your funding annually is recalculated and adjusted based on those enrollments. And it's called third calculation, usually comes out at the end of January. We had this presentation prepared for you today based on our prediction. And then yesterday, the third calculation came out. And so Michelle and Kim and her team were here late into the night helping to update these slides. So they are based on yesterday's release. So she did some real quick work, and we really appreciate that. So annually, DOE provides multiple models to schools to predict their enrollment, and this is for the purpose specifically of funding. They give you multiple models. This year, they do simulations, and then they provide you with the choices. Both for this year and for next year, we selected the most conservative approach. That way, you don't get funding based on growth and then it doesn't happen and you don't get the funding. So we tried to be very conservative. We picked the model that had the smallest amount of growth. And it is a good thing that we did that. However, the growth didn't meet the model. So I'm going to show you how that impacted us. After third calculation, which was yesterday, our funding for this year will be recalculated. And I'm going to show you how that impacts us. And I know you have this slide in your packet. If you can't see this, I'm going to point out a couple things on the slide. This is showing you the forecasted enrollment based on the models in the white column. In the middle column is the third calc that we just received, and then how that impacts us. And you can see that Michelle has broken this slide down. She prepared this chart to show you St. Lucie Public Schools, charter schools, and then family empowerment scholarships and the total. I'm going to call your attention to St. Lucie Public Schools, and you can see that our weighted FTE is actually lower than the predicted model by 548 unweighted FTE. So that's what that illustrates.
Dr. Wild, just
Yes.
to be clear, the unweighted FTE is basically just the number of students.
The unweighted FTE, when we show you our enrollment, is the number of students in seats, approximately. However, this is 548 FTE lower than the predicted model, not lower than last year's students. Our enrollment is down by about 155 students from last year, but based on the predicted models that we had to select, this is 548 lower.
Now, I would also like to point out here that, and I don't know if you're explicit in a minute, but the charters, their enrollment forecast, if you look on the far left, was 7,151 students, and that decline was even more significant, and they're only about 12% of our total population.
And you're going to see that impact as well. So, yeah, the far left is the forecasted based on the models we had to choose from. With St. Lucie Public Schools, 41,599 was the smallest number we had to choose from. So taking that further, then we add weighted FTE, and that goes back to our program cost factors that weight certain students because it costs more to educate them. So ESE students, the more complex the needs, the smaller the class, and so forth. So the weighted factors are taken into account, and so our weighted factors are 1,124 weighted FTE lower than the predicted model. That then equates to, for St. Lucie Public Schools, a reduction of $7,263,000 in our revenue for this school year, the current school year. And you can see, if you can, for the charter schools is quite significant at $4 million. Their decline is $4 million. Shared among all of the charter schools in our district, we have 7. So we are right now looking at a reduction of $7.2 million to our current budget for this year's operational costs. And so the superintendent has directed us to come up with some cost-saving strategies and a cost reduction plan, some of what is what Ms. Aronson was referring to when she talked about moratorium on hiring certain positions. So I already mentioned that this calculation was provided to us yesterday and that our actual enrollment is down by approximately 155 students. We'll get back to how we're going to be looking at generating revenue and saving costs for this school year in just a moment. But this is further compounded by federal fund reductions. So I'm going to go into that now. Federal funds for this year were reduced also a total of $7.2 million for this school year. And we have several federal funding sources. The main ones are highlighted here in bold that were reduced. Title I was reduced by almost $3 million this school year. And Title I, to Mrs. Richardson's earlier questions, that is the funding source that is allocated to school districts specifically to provide more to high-need schools, high-poverty schools. And that was reduced by $2.9 million. Title II was reduced by $1.175. That is for all of our professional learning, where we push people into schools, we provide training to our teachers, pull them into the building. It's also for our mentoring of new teachers for the first 2, sometimes 3 years of their career, where we provide mentoring. That all comes out of Title II. That was reduced by over $1 million. And IDEA, which I think most people are aware, that is to support our students that are designated as ESE, that have special needs, and that does include ESE pre-K. That was reduced by $1.8 million. And then the other collective funding sources in federal funding added up to the remaining $1.2 million for a total reduction of $7.2 million. What also made these reductions this year an additional challenge is that 2 of them, $2 million of the Title I funding and $500,000 of the Title II funding, came right before the school year started, after we had already hired individuals, planned expenditures. So that was a challenge. We did make some cuts, mostly at the district level, and canceled some plans in order to make it through this budgetary year in Title I and Title II. We can't say for sure what will happen at the federal level, but we are expecting these kinds of trends to continue, and so we're planning accordingly. We'd rather stay ahead of it and be conservative than overspend. In addition, we are impacted by the Family Empowerment Scholarships and the fact that there is no longer income caps on earning the Family Empowerment Scholarship, and the number is expected to increase every year. They are increasing the number that they provide. That does pull funding away from regular district schools and charter schools. So what does that look like? The total value of Family Empowerment Scholarships in St. Lucie County, for St. Lucie County residents, is $64 million, almost $65 million. The negative impact on our budget, when you look at the budget that Michelle shares each year, was $51,692,000 this year. That shows up in our FEFP. If you look at our budget, you'll see those dollars there, but those are dollars that we can't touch. They are then funneled over to the Family Empowerment Scholarships. So we're just trying to make that clear for anyone who's trying to follow our budget that that is not money that we have access to. So I mentioned the superintendent has charged us all with coming up with a cost reduction plan. So we have established priorities, some non-negotiables for us that are extremely important. First and foremost is everybody's safety. That's staff, students, making sure that we ensure everyone's safety and compliance with all of the requirements that public educators are held to. We need to prioritize those two things. And then we've all been talking about the importance of putting our emphasis in the classroom, minimizing the impact on classroom instruction and students in general. So that is also one of our highest priorities. We also, of course, are going to adhere to our bargaining agreement contract language. And as a matter of fact, when we face these types of decisions in the past and these challenges in the past, we do work really closely with our bargaining partners on the plan, paying attention to the impact on our employees as well. And then along the same lines, we're committed to avoid layoffs and coming up with methods to provide landing places for our employees to make sure that they have a job. And the most recent time we've had to demonstrate that was what everyone refers to as the ESSER cliff. And we were here before talking to you about when the ESSER dollars after COVID went away all at once. We had $11.9 million of staffing, much of that at the school level, that we had to make sure that those people found positions if their current position was eliminated. So we continue to be committed to that. And then it's important to us and to Dr. Prince that we have clear communication plan, that everyone knows what to expect and when they will receive information. We also don't want to be hasty. We want to be really careful and methodical about all of these decisions. And consider the simultaneous reductions to federal grants. Sometimes in the past, you could rely on a federal grant to help us overcome shortfalls. Now, with those being reduced simultaneously, we have to keep all of that in mind in our reduction plans. So moving into that, for 25-26, for this school year, we have already taken steps. Probably our major cost reduction is going to be in attrition and reducing the cost of positions, because as you're aware, most of our funding does go for staff. Salaries takes up the bulk of any large organization's funding sources. So at this point, we have frozen our district-level positions. We have frozen our vacant clerical positions across the district and non-classroom teacher positions. We do have procedures in place to ensure that we review every opening to make sure it doesn't affect safety or compliance and those other priorities that I mentioned. But we are freezing positions so that those dollars that would have been covering those positions will then be recovered and help to offset that $7.2 million reduction in the FEFP. And that will only work for openings that happen from first semester to second, not for openings that we've left vacant all year. We do have some like that, but we're talking about when someone leaves mid-year and we don't fill the position, then that is money that we thought we were going to have to spend that now we get to recover. So an example of what I just said is that I took the specific job titles off, but these are two real examples. They just happened where a student services employee that was funded 100% out of general fund resigned. We have frozen that position. That the cost of that position, which includes not just salary, but fringe, FRS contributions, all of that, was for the annual cost was $83,000. So we expect to recover about $40,000 to offset towards that 7.2 million. We have to also be very methodical, and it can be time-consuming, because the second example here was a district-level employee, but this particular individual was funded 80% through IDEA, 20% through general fund. So $10,000 will be recovered for general fund, and then we'll have to do some amendments at the state level to move some other general funded positions that are allowable out of IDEA to the rest of what was covering her salary. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, which is why you can't just instantly put a dollar amount on it, but we are planning meticulously every day right now. We are also right now exploring options to increase the number of allowable general funded positions that we can charge to capital. We already do this. We're just taking another very surgical look at it to ensure that we are taking full advantage of any flexibility allowed in the funding formula. Although doing so could require us to revisit our 5-year capital plan and maybe postpone a project that we planned on doing this year that could wait a year or two in order to help recover from this $7.2 million deficit. The second strategy here is to begin moving over-allocated positions from former turnaround schools into open positions. So we have in the past over-allocated, meaning you have a standard staffing formula across the board. All schools of this size get this many assistant principals, this many clerks, this many counselors, deans, and so forth. In the past, when a school has gone into state turnaround, D and F schools, we have provided additional staff on top of the supplementary staff they get from Title I or additional funding sources like UNISIG, so they do have more staff than other schools. We have actually left that overallocation there longer than most districts do in order to make sure they can sustain their success. We want to make sure they're not going to fall back into state turnaround, get a D and an F, and we have left those positions there. We have now started to move them to schools with vacancies so that we're not over-allocating. We are already so efficient, as Dr. Summer showed you, but we are making sure that we are filling vacancies with those over-allocations. For example, we just moved an assistant principal from St. Lucie Elementary to a newly vacated assistant principal opening at Morningside, where there was only one assistant principal. She retired, and we replaced her with an existing assistant principal transfer. We are reducing all district department budgets and school discretionary budgets by 10%. And so, of course, that's going to impact everybody, but it is necessary at this time. We're also reducing any overtime hours wherever possible, looking at strategies to do that. For example, making sure our systems are really tight for alarms going off on the weekend and having to call people out for overtime hours, working really hard to reduce anything there that we can. We have frozen travel to conferences unless it's required by a grant. There are some grants that require that you attend conferences or participate in some learning in Orlando or somewhere. If it's required deliverable in a grant, we will still allow it, but overall we have frozen. This is for adults, adult travel, teachers, administrators going to conferences. We are reducing our HVAC run outside of instructional hours, where we can just turn up the temperature a little earlier to reduce run times. And we are determining how much we are going to save this year from lower gas prices. We know this fluctuates, but we expect to benefit some right now from depressed diesel prices. I'm going to move into 26, 27 because we know that this is going to be a continuing trend for a little while. And just to go back to the FEFP for a moment, I mentioned that for next year, we also picked the most conservative model for funding. However, the most conservative model still predicted growth If that doesn't happen, then we will see this type of reduction again next year for third calculation. However, now that this trend has started, we'll plan for that. We won't budget for the entire amount. We will anticipate that we might get less. So we're going to be watching that really carefully, and we'll explain that when we do next year's budget and get all those numbers. We are conducting a comprehensive review of each department's organizational structure. We are looking at certain roles to see if they might be reclassified, or somebody's role could be expanded to take on additional duties. Our goal is always to ensure that we're using our resources wisely. You can see that on the slide, and we continue that, which is why we have that efficiency data. We did put a few of these slides in here as well, just to remind anybody who just tuned in from home and didn't see Dr. Summers' presentation, that we are already operating so efficiently, third in the state for efficiency. So there isn't a lot of places to cut, but we're taking a really surgical approach and taking a look everywhere, under every rock. So this is just a reminder of our ranking third in the state across all 67 districts for administrative efficiency. And these rankings are pulled from data that is published on the DOE website, and the funding source for the administrators is not taken into account. It doesn't matter if it's an IDEA-funded administrator, Title I, whether it was ESSER, doesn't matter. It's administrator is an administrator, and they're all counting equally in this data. Okay, looking at strategies for 26-27. Like I said, we're going to look very carefully in each department. Each chief is going to be meeting with each of their directors, executive directors, and looking at, is there any opportunity for cost savings, streamlining operations in every single district department. This is above and beyond the budget cut that they've already seen and above and beyond the freezing of current positions. We're going to be looking at alternative methods of work, and then we will report back whatever strategies are generated, and we will then meet again and involve our CFO, Michelle Thomas, to ensure that nothing was missed. So we really are doubling down on taking a close look at district operations. At the school level, we are going to be collecting feedback from our principals. We are going to be looking at our allocation formulas. I mentioned that there's a standard formula, and it relates to how big does the school need to get in each grade configuration to earn additional positions. We're going to take a look at that for opportunities. And then we might be looking at specific job titles across the board that we could find other ways to accomplish that work to save money moving forward, taking into consideration all those things I mentioned earlier. We are also eliminating the extended hours at the 4 schools that remain that get the additional 20 minutes. Those are schools that used to be in turnaround. They've successfully sustained their grade status, so it's a celebration at the same time. And that will yield $640,000 back into our budget next year. We're reviewing our capital outlay plan to determine options for places where we could save money by delaying projects. We are seeking alternative funding sources. We're working with the Education Foundation and Tom Jones to see if there could be some grants or donors that could help offset the costs of some of our heavy expenditures, such as some computer programs that we use, some particular positions that really help us meet the needs of our students and meet some of those challenges, like attendance challenges, and some additional considerations for Education Foundation support. We're also implementing some strategies to generate revenue. We are increasing our VPK parent pay rate slightly. It has never been increased. And then we are adding 2 more VPK parent pay units at Tradition Lakes K-8, which is also needed to meet an early childhood gap. We still need more seats in the red zone. Tradition Lakes is in the red zone So we will be opening 2 new VPKs, school district-operated VPKs. We are actually going to be coming to you with a presentation at the February workshop about our status as a step-up contracted school district, where we can become a provider for Family Empowerment Scholarship families to buy courses a la carte. So what that means is if a family is a PEP scholarship recipient, which means they're a homeschool student receiving the dollars that's called PEP, Personalized Education Plan, they can decide to come to one of our schools and take a course or 2 courses and pay tuition. It's not tuition, but pay a fee to take the courses. And we will be going to homeschool networks to reach out to those families. We are on the Step Up website now as an approved provider, and we do have some courses out there to pilot this year and learn how the system works with Step Up. Bridget Hargadine has been working on that, working with the families to sign people up. And next year we expect to have a lot of courses out there, and we're going to go into detail with you on that at the February board workshop. We are also seeking Education Foundation support and any other source that we can find to establish evening programs, community schools, community and adult high school programs in the evening in our schools. Once that is established, those programs can be self-sustaining. The college has been the entity in St. Lucie County who has provided those services in the past, but we are being told there is a need for them now. There's not as many offerings as there used to be, and it is a way that we can meet a community need and also generate additional funds by opening up some of our schools in the evening, and so we're working on a plan for that. We're also looking at our facility lease options to see if there's some opportunities there to increase a funding stream, a revenue stream. We're also going to have to take a look again at our supplements, and this is something that we've done in the past, and we do it through contract negotiations, union negotiations. Take a look at any potential reductions there that might be necessary in order to meet our budget goals. We are looking very closely at all of our contracts to see what contracts could either be non-renewed or renegotiated. We are also, the second one is could be a very exciting opportunity. We've been concerned with rising healthcare costs for a long time, as everybody is, and we are exploring a trust to help us in going to self-insured, to become a self-insured district with our health insurance. We're going to bring that to a February workshop as well. If we do go down the road of self-insured, we're also going to explore operating our own clinics, which is also a cost savings not only for the district but also for our employees. And this is something that we would explore alongside our union partners as well. They are part of our healthcare committee. And we are exploring AI solutions for anything that would make our work more efficient. We are not opposed to utilizing AI when it is beneficial and makes anybody's work easier, as long as it's safe and secure. We are exploring those. I mentioned contracts. We are going to issue some new RFPs to try to get better competitive pricing on some of our contracts. We do that regularly, but we're putting some out for bid a little bit earlier than we normally would. We're looking at all of our transportation and custodial costs. So you can see this is across all departments to enforce our optimized field trip routing, to reduce our miles on the road and increase efficiency. We're also looking at identifying underutilized rooms to adjust custodial staffing models and expand our aggregate buys for better pricing. This is something that we have really started to do on a regular basis in Terrence O'Leary's shop, and he's going to be diving deeper into that. In terms of technology, we're looking at extending device life warranties to reduce how frequently we have to buy new computers. He is conducting a redundancy study to see if we have any duplications and where there is any software that isn't getting a lot of usage that we might be able to drop. In looking at our timeline, right now, we have already taken action on the department budget reductions and those types of things that I shared. So that's all happening in January. We are communicating these challenges. We've already spoken to our school principals to put them on notice that we are looking at this. We're going to dive deeper into that with the principals at a future meeting. We're sharing it with you today at the school board. We've had initial discussions with our union, and we plan to go much more in depth with them. I mentioned that we have already frozen the positions as they become vacant, and have a procedure in place for any vacancy to be reviewed at the district level before any postings are done. Anything that is deemed necessary to be posted will be posted internally for our existing employees to fill, and therefore that would leave another vacancy for someone else as we enter into next year. In February, we will be releasing our Title I budgets. In the third week of February, we will conduct an input study with our principals to get their feelings on potential savings. We'll complete all of our district analysis of potential savings. We'll ask our employees who intends to return. That does help our principals and our district HR department plan for next year. And we will be collaborating with our union partners as well. In March, we will release any updates to our school-based staffing allocation formulas. We will provide principals with that. We also have a process annually for allocating staff to our schools based on their anticipated enrollment. We will take care of all of that in March. And then we will begin placing anybody who is affected by any budget reductions we decide to do into positions, allow for transfers before we open up positions to outside applicants. We will take care of our current existing employees. Much the way we did with ESSER most recently. March through June, we will continue to monitor placement, make sure that everybody gets landed in a position that's appropriate for their skill set, and then we will open internal postings to outside applicants. That is it for this presentation, and I want to open it up to any questions, unless Dr. Prince has anything to add before we start. No? Okay.
Ms. Aronson?
As we are rocketing into our fourth hour here today,
Rocketing.
I do have some questions, but I would like to propose that we bring for a more in-depth conversation about cost-saving measures at.
I think this will probably be brought up almost every other workshop. I mean, this is not something that's going to go away for a while.
Yeah.
Yes, and to your point, Ms. Aronson, this is just the first.
Yeah.
We're going to be having updates every month for the board, and also providing different options for the board, to make decision points on moving forward.
Making my point that the conversation does not need to be exhausted today.
Yeah.
No. It's just
You should probably be talking to the superintendent privately.
Yeah, and the only reason I said that is we just got the third calc 2 days ago, and we just literally, the good news is yesterday.
We just ordered lunch.
And we were, and actually, we had a slide that was our prediction. And I also want to say also we don't have many options with regards to what model we select. We always select the most conservative model, but it's not like we can just kick it back and say, we actually think our enrollment's going to be less than that or more than that. We have to select the model based on what they provide to us, and we provide the most conservative estimate. I will say this is the first time since I've been here, and I don't know, back in 2008 when we had the crash, that the district has actually declined in enrollment. That is a first. I'm saying it, our enrollment was down this year due to the Florida Empowerment Scholarships and the PEP scholarships. And we have to anticipate going into next year, we don't, that we could have another $7 million shortfall, after third calc in 2027. So we need to plan for the worst, and my direction to staff is to look at everywhere that we can cut, where can we maximize our opportunities, and necessity is the mother of invention, and to try to make sure that the district is in good financial shape so that we can still, number one is we don't want layoffs, and number two is we want to make sure that we're compensating our employees and that we have dollars to do just that. And that's also why we're going in the direction of potentially going self-insured, which is a huge cost to the district. I'm talking about insurance and the rise in insurance costs that we're going to workshop that with the school board next month in conjunction with some of the other things and initiatives that we're looking at. But the budget will be February, March, April.
Any other questions?
Actually, I don't have well, I do have questions, but I just wanted to say that on page 47, that full, the step-up contract or the a la carte courses, the events, I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
I think it's brilliant. Thank you, Ms. Hargadine. In so many ways. So thank you. And also, that $7 million, that deficit, that $7 million, didn't we know about this before this happened? That there was going to be, or did we anticipate a decline or?
No, this is based on the predicted. We knew about it. We had a predicted model that we were coming today to present to you.
Right.
But yesterday is when the hard data landed. So, no.
Okay, what I'm saying is, did we not expect ahead of this year, or when everything started to kind of go south, that we were going to have somewhat of a decline?
No, there was no predictive model. Every one of our, the studies that we've just went through anticipated, we've been, climbing between 500 and 1,000 students annually. There's no way to predict the impact of the Florida Empowerment Scholarships. And there is a silver lining for us here, and the silver lining is this: because we've had so much growth, and there are still a whole lot of single-family homes going in across the county, we are not seeing the drastic, the bottom dropping out of some of the other districts in the state that are in significant financial crisis. We're in good shape, but we just have to make sure that we're in great shape. So we have to go through this exercise, but there was no way to predict that, to your point, Mrs. Richardson.
Okay, because I know the thought is, or the thinking is, that it's not going to get any better anytime soon. So, I mean, we're in terms of predicting more deficit, right?
Yes.
So that's something that we need to, give it a figure, give it another 7,000 and strategize or try to, make sure that we work within.
Yes, ma'am, and that's exactly what we're going through. That's what we're planning, and those will be the models that we present the board, is how we're going to, our recommendations to address what we anticipate will happen, not just this year, but next year as well.
Right, for the years to come, so that we are not
Yes, ma'am.
blindsided. And I see these considerations for the cost reduction planning. And one of the things that kind of concerns me, we understand that the our students is our core. That's who we cater to. But we have to cater to, not cater to, but consider the staff, right? And so according, its salaries are important. That salaries takes up a lot of, or the budget, okay? So my concern is that when I go to the supermarket, I'm spending a lot of money. I don't even go with a budget anymore. I just pick up what I want to eat because I'm sorry, I'm going to eat, okay? So, you know, everything is expensive. Housing, electricity, gas, everything is expensive anymore. So for me, the concern is when it comes to salaries and how we're going to address that.
I don't have that answer for you right now.
I know we don't.
Yeah, I know it's a priority.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that's
Yeah.
a concern. That is a concern. And I'm talking about not the people that aren't necessarily making a whole lot of money or making money that we can live on. It's the ones that don't. You know, that is my concern. And I'm not talking about just teachers, and I'm going to use the word educators. You know, that is a concern, and that's something, I know we're 4 hours into our meeting, but that's something that, you know, definitely I'm concerned about.
And we share that concern. We first have to be concerned about jobs and then salaries, for sure.
I get that.
Yeah.
That we're going to secure the jobs.
Yes.
And I want, you know, for us to understand, yes, we are going to secure the job. That's something we are looking at. But when we're talking about salaries, that's another, and I'm not going to go
Of
there
course.
today, but that is a concern. I want our staff to be able to go to the supermarket and be able to eat and not live
We
in
all
their
do.
cars or whatever.
Of course.
That is a concern. And with that, I yield.
Mrs. Richardson brought up a good point about $7 million shortfall. And it's important that the community understands that some of us have been around long enough to see this happen. And this is just not something that came upon the school district. Our FTE gets counted in October, and we knew that we were a little short, which would be $1 million or $1.2 million, which was no big deal to absorb. But when politics comes in play at the federal level, and things get voted on and things get turned down at the federal level that we're not anticipating, that's where the $3 million or $4 million of Title I funds, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, I'm trying to play as close as possible. You can't base your, I mean, we would like to, but the school district can't wait till August or October to figure out how we're going to spend because we've already hired employees for the year. So when you cut Title I funds, it's predominantly you're putting employees in the classroom on these funds, so that makes it rough. That's when politics comes into play, and I'm not saying local or state, but at the federal level, that's where it really makes it difficult to plan. So I appreciate our district staff coming forth and sharing this information, and obviously Ms. Aronson, Dr. Mills and Ms. Hawley and Mrs. Richardson, we're going to have a lot of decisions to be making for the future because the superintendent isn't just looking for this year. We're looking for years out to see how this is going to impact us. And it'll be interesting. So I thank you, Dr. Prince and Dr. Wild, for bringing this to the board. Oh, yeah, I'll just, if you're reading the pineapple report, I don't even know why they call it a pineapple report. But if you read the pineapple report, you know, some districts have closed close to 10 to 20 schools in their school districts. You know, we're fortunate to be able that we've been very vigilant with the taxpayers' money, and we've watched it. And, you know, this is just, you know, a great attribute to our staff. And when we build buildings, you know, we don't build Taj Mahals. We're building them on budget, on time, and efficiently as possible, as opposed to other school districts. So just think to our citizens of St. Lucie County, we're doing our best, and whatever money we get, we try to make sure it's in the classroom. Any other questions, concerns? Dr. Prince, is that it? All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
I think the reason he had Fuentes on his show was because he was worried that Fuentes was getting his audience in some ways. You know, they had this kind of little feud going on where Tucker had said a lot of derogatory things about Fuentes.